Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a visual review of the 4 common finishes that you will see on architectural bronze, sometimes referred to as just brass, thresholds. Well, thresholds and weather stripping or door sweeps, whatever the material might be made of. I have samples of those finishes here. But first, when someone says that they want a bronze threshold or a brass threshold, or possibly architectural bronze, which is the industry terminology used, people are meaning something that is not aluminum and is manufactured of what they know as to be brass, typically, or bronze. What architectural bronze is, and I'll refer to it that way, is simply an amalgamation of 3 primary materials, with the majority of it being copper. So copper is by far the majority component in a brass or an architectural bronze threshold, with there being a small amount of lead, and then the balance is zinc. The alloy known as architectural bronze, or what you're knowing as just brass, that is going to be considered a part number, or pardon me, a metallurgical number known as, I'm going to give it to you now, I don't recall what it is. It is, if you were to do an internet search for C38500, that's the architectural bronze copper alloy number. So it's the copper alloy number C38500, and that would give you metallurgical properties of a brass threshold. Mostly copper, let's say 58%, 2 or 3% of lead, and then about 40% zinc. That's what it is. You can do that same research and determine why that sort of amalgamation of metals are used, with the short version of that simply being that C38500 alloy is used primarily as used as hardware for architectural doors and trim, because of its properties. Easily hot worked and has a pleasant yellow gold color. But that alloy, that copper alloy, is used in the architectural hardware industry because of its machining properties and what the net result is. So on my desktop here, I have the different finishes, and I'm going to tip the camera down, get it positioned so that we can review them. Okay, I've got the camera repositioned here, although the glare from my overhead lights does not do us much help. You've got mill finish here, and I'm going to lift these pieces up in a moment. You've got satin here, you've got polished here, and then oil rubbed bronze. Let's go over them one at a time. By far the most common is just mill finish. It gets its name mill, and these are just samples. Please disregard the fact that these are just samples. Mill, because this is what the material looks like when it's extruded at the mill. This is actually what it looks like. This is the exact finish you're going to get. It's going to look just like this. There's no preparation to it. Doesn't look like anything's been done to it, because nothing has been done. And these samples have been sitting in my shop for an unknown amount of time. So there's a small amount of, I don't know if oxidation is the right word on architectural bronze, but the underneath that's been less exposed to just general broad, just general interior light looks like that. Now, this would be called mill, as I said before. The next one is satin bronze, and this is absolutely known as US4. US4 or 606 is a good way to call this. That's your satin bronze, and people are going to want that because it's an incredibly elegant, regal sort of finish. Again, that underside looks just like the mill does. Okay. Very nice brushed finish. So 606 or US4. US4 means satin brass. It's a better way to call it 606 because that infers both a brushed finish and a satin finish on a solid brass piece of hardware. The next is polished. The same material, again, you can see the underside looks just like the others, but now we're going to take the time and make that into a high polish. That's going to be buffed, That's going to be polished. There's going to be a lacquer applied. That's very typical and common. Very high reflective sort of finish that you see on there. Last is, or at least in this video, is the oil rubbed bronze. A very common finish. This is every bit the same material as the previous three. It's solid brass or architectural bronze with an oil rubbed finish. So people will select these for a variety of different purposes that they might have in mind. Meaning you will select one of these finishes because you want the look of your threshold to be something now and potentially something later. Here's what I mean. If what your aim is to just get something that's going to patina as quickly as possible, you want mill. You want just the least expensive version, and mill certainly is. Your next finish is that satin brass, and that's generally when people want it to look just like this. And while all of these finishes will certainly fatigue over time, at least when you have a satin finish, you're going to have that finish for quite a while. Now, the polished finish is obviously when someone wants a polished look, but it's also not uncommon for someone to say, you know what, I not only want the polished finish, but they specifically want, over time, the lacquer to degrade, which it will, and then to have that natural patina that will occur after the polish is worn off and it gets down to that brass. The last is the oil rubbed. People will order oil rubbed because they want that oil rubbed sort of look. Now, before we go further, technically you can get other finishes. You can get polished chrome. You can get satin chrome. You can get what we call Chicago fire black. The truth, though, is that this hardware, like all items exposed to the elements, will degrade and fatigue over time. Sometimes that's the plan, sometimes that's not. Sometimes you understand that the threshold, this polished threshold, is going to look spectacular for a finite amount of time. Anyway, this video really is to show the different finishes because that's a common question. Someone knows that they want architectural bronze or solid brass, but they're just not sure what finish they want to go with, and hopefully this video of the mill, of the satin, of the polished, and then lastly the oil rubbed will help you determine which finish you'd like to have on your threshold or weather stripping. People will select solid brass or architectural bronze thresholds because, well, I've heard every reason. Number one, it's a museum. Here in downtown Chicago, City Hall has bronze thresholds in the front of it. Those thresholds have probably been there 100 years. People will select it because they are ordering something that they are specifically intending to last several decades. Another reason I've heard, I just built a multi-million-dollar house and I want the best threshold I can purchase. Well, the answer to that is architectural bronze. It could also be a design aesthetic, meaning that there's a very specific finish that is required. Anodizing on aluminum is not going to give you the properties that solid brass would allow you to have, so that could be another design criteria. It could also just be keeping up with the Joneses as well. It's difficult to come up with a reason to not use this, short of economic, because this material is superior in every other way compared to aluminum. But the cost is exponentially greater with something that is exponentially more durable. My name is Rich Howard. I'm the owner of Architectural Builder Supply. If you have any questions on any of these architectural bronze finishes or thresholds in general, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you very much.